I'm Charlie Redding,
And I'm Claire Fudge.
and this is the TRIBEathlon podcast.
Surround yourself with people that are better than you but not like you.
That was Iain Hamilton, and this episode is Journey of an Outlaw. Iain Hamilton founded OSB Events as a college project and has built a business renowned for its brilliant and accessible races. A former elite triathlete himself, he won a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015 for his work developing the sport in the UK. As organisers of the award-winning Outlaw Triathlon series and the Cambridge Half Marathon, and having raced many of those races ourselves, Claire and I wanted to chat to Iain about the positive changes that COVID brought about in the sport, the highlights and the challenges of running events, both that are popular and that are profitable, and also what it feels like to build a brand where people tattoo your logo onto their skin. This interview is with the outlaw legend that is Iain Hamilton. How would you like to grow your business whilst working less and enjoying your work life more? Well, that's how we help people at the Trusted Team. We do that through workshops which happen in person and online. We do that through regular online learning that you can just do from your desk at lunchtime. And we do it through in-person events that make fun tax deductible. Things like golf days, dinners, wine tasting, all of that fun stuff. They help you build stronger relationships and enjoy work more. So if you want to know how we can help you grow your business and improve your work-life balance, go to thetrusted.team to find out when our next free taster event or free webinar is, so that you can find out how we can help you grow your business and get your work-life balance back. That's thetrusted.team. Come join us at one of our events.
Are you struggling to manage energy levels at work or during training? Finding it hard to know how to fit in eating for health, sport, and life? Do you want to separate fact from fiction? At Fourth Discipline, we work with leaders, professionals, athletes, and people with medical conditions. We take you on a 6-step science-led journey to manage energy, optimize performance, recover well, and improve health. We offer enhancement clinics for businesses, supportive online workshops, one-to-one coaching, and accountability. If you'd like to have a free call to find out how we can support you, then log on to fourthdiscipline.com and book your call today.
So Iain, welcome to the TRIBEathlon podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. I've raced in a few of the outlaw races. I've got the Outlaw Half coming up this weekend, so great to get you on to find out a little bit about the man behind the races. But I always like to kick things off by asking a bit about the story behind where you've come from. So, and I know you were an elite triathlete in your racing days. So tell us a bit about how you found your way into triathlon and your triathlon career.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Looking forward to having a chat. And as I say, I've seen what might be coming up. So it should be quite entertaining. Background-wise, I was a failed from the age of 7, failed swimmer. About the age of 12 or 13, failed runner, came from Nottingham, and I'm not sure whether my parents are going to be watching or listening to this, but with me coming from Nottingham, everybody managed to get some kind of rally bike out of the back door and paid next to nothing for it. So I got myself a racing bike, and hey presto, started doing triathlon in 1985 when I was 12 years old.
Fantastic.
The first triathlon I did was down at the Water Sports Centre, which is obviously now where we still do most of our events, and Outlaw was born, etc., etc.
And so tell us a bit about how you progressed through from doing your first triathlon to some of the pinnacles of your triathlon career?
That's quite funny. I'm not really sure actually I had any sort of pinnacles. I always, and I suspect that a lot of people are the same. I probably ended up finishing before I should have done. So I probably finished when I was 24 or 25, having raced pro well, in my day, pro wasn't such a thing. It was more of a full-time athlete living at home, and every now and again getting to go and do some training camps abroad. But I was either full-time or pro, dependent upon your terminology, for 4 or 5 years. And from the age of 25 when I finished, 25 years later, probably still that same frustrated wannabe athlete. Which is the fortunate thing is, my theory is I've never really worked a proper day in my whole life because I absolutely love what I do. So from the age of 20 or 21, when I decided to give it a go and lived in France, lived in New Zealand, travelled and got some decent travelling done. Every day has been about swim, bike and run, and it still is. And genuinely, absolutely love it, and I have no ambitions to do anything else or anything like that. So
fantastic. And why did you? Was it your performances? Was it the money? Why did you stop being a pro or a full-time athlete at 25?
I've always had a second driver, which is not so much of a driver nowadays. And after sort of like race results, it was always sort of becoming professional. So yeah, an element of being financially driven as well. And it was, as much as it was nice to, I had some great sponsors and that type of thing. But the ambition of buying a house, which was very strange for a 25-year-old that never had a job, but wanting to buy a house and a few sort of, other things like that, was one of the reasons why I ended up sort of stopping. Entertainingly, I did get a job. I sold socks for a while with a brand called 1000 Mile, and a chap called Dean Jackson, who is known for various things, but obviously now being the CEO of Hoop.
And he's been on the podcast before.
Oh yeah, so Dean and I go back to when I was 16 years old. We've been sort of like pretty close mates all the way along, and it was him that sort of said, "Oh, I've got a mate of mine who needs a young person to go and sell some socks." And so that was when I was about 25. So I did that for a little bit, and then, but all the time I'd started to organise events. The nice thing at that point was you didn't have to spend a great deal of time organising events. There wasn't a great deal to an event. There wasn't a great deal of people taking part in them, and the expectations were relatively low. And my first event was really, really small, but my second one was the triathlon relays, which is now, obviously headline sponsor actually are Hoop, and that was when I started organising over 30 years ago. And so still exists now, still chaotic, unique, everything that a triathlon shouldn't normally be. It's not about being an individual sport. It's about a team event. People will race in the morning and drink beer in the afternoon, so it's completely different to anything else. But that was where I sort of like cut my teeth in triathlon organisation, really.
Brilliant. And so when was the first Outlaw event organised?
So we delivered the first Outlaw in 2010. We'd started thinking of it and had various conversations, including conversations with Ironman as well, from 2008, because at that point there was an obvious gap in the market, and we got in at the right time. I was previous to that, I was already organising the Vitruvian, which Charlie might know. That was
on my doorstep.
Yeah, literally, yeah. And amazing, like, we were one of the first people to sell out 1,000 entries within 24 hours, and that was in the early 2000s. It was, you know, sort of like historic event. From that progressed into Outlaw because I could see that there was an opportunity for a full distance event. And we couldn't, however much we looked at retrieving, we could never double that distance. So hence the reason why Outlaw came along, and we decided we had sort of like certain parameters that we wanted. And, you know, what a simple thing was, we wanted people to get a tattoo. You know, that was like sort of like where the branding came from, and all completely random things like that. We wanted you to cross the finish line, and we wanted you to be something. Obviously, you became an outlaw. By that point, I was already socially racing in Ironman events, and so I'd done a few, spectated more, and I knew really what I thought an outlaw should look like.
And was there at any point any likelihood that it was actually going to be an Ironman branded event? Is that something you explored?
Yeah. The whole Outlaw itself was due to become Ironman, but we were never able to sort of like get that off the ground, which is fine. Things would look very different, but we sort of took it on our own, took all the risks. And obviously, you then take the rewards a few years later. But yeah, so the conversation actually started with Nottingham potentially being a host of an Ironman event.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think with the benefit of hindsight, do you ever regret that not being what worked out, or do you think it's been much better now that it's your own branding?
I have this really, really, really simple theory that everything happens for a reason, and that in no way would we now be in the position that we're in. Obviously, we went up to 6 events, we're now down at 4, and this year's a struggle. But we've had a lot of really good years as we've grown this brand, and you know, we've had genuine conversations about going international. And obviously, Ironman is the pinnacle. Everyone knows the brand. You can go anywhere in the world and say, and people know what you're talking about. And I guess at some point, you know, Outlaw might get to that stage, but I've got no regrets whatsoever. Sort of like we're in an absolutely brilliant place. I've been in the office all day today. Everyone's buzzing. Everyone loves what they do. The phone calls that we get in, you know, everyone is just really, really positive about stuff.
Brilliant.
Iain, can you tell us a little bit about sort of, you talked about the events many years ago, sort of in triathlon, and I remember some of the first events that I did, and you know, you were saying it was really easy to set up. You just turned up, you raced, there wasn't as much to it. You know, a big event like Outlaw there's so many things you have to think about, and people often talk about, you know, the entry fees for whether it's Ironman events or challenge events or events like yours. What are all the things that you need to consider? Because as athletes racing, I think sometimes we don't fully understand, you know, all those different elements in terms of road closures, in terms of, I mean, insurance must be crazy, I would imagine, in terms of having that many athletes on the road and in the lake and things. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what all that involves in terms of a bit, you know, making a big event?
Yeah, and I think sometimes, you know, it's justified to question people. Equally so, for example, our offices now, we're fortunate, we've now got brand new offices. We've recently had, which have now been built, so we've got 4,000 square foot warehouse, we have a fleet of vehicles, we've got 8 full-time staff. So when somebody sort of demands all of their money back, well, realistically, you know, between 25 and maybe 30% of their fees are actually going on fixed costs. You know, for Charlie, who's head of customer services, for Charlie to answer the phone, or for Alan and Steve, that are part of our operations team, for them to take out one of the vans that we own. We like to do things correct, so our vans are all sort of what we call Chapter 8, so they've got the chevrons on and all that type of thing. So, you know, there's a lot of like hidden costs, and people would never, you know, consider that. We've just spent £15,000 on racking to put all the equipment into a warehouse. Because what people see is people think, well, it's a medal, it's a T-shirt, it's a biodegradable cup, which we now give away at the feed stations and that type of thing. So there's a lot more to where entry fees go. And the question, we don't get often criticism for our entry fees. The fortunate thing is Ironman are within reason sort of like double hours. And so Ironman are the people that are the ones that get a lot of questioning about their fees. You know, don't get me wrong, some events got decent margin. However, you could be working and looking at our bottom line at the moment, and we are a nice sort of like 50-50 split. We've got, you know, 2 of the Outlaws this year should make money and 2 will lose money. And it is as as simple as that. Yeah. And you know, we've been around for a long time. You know, we're pretty we're sturdy in the business. We've been set up well. We now do have a big brother that helps us, advises us, and that type of thing, as being part of the CSM group. And so we are, you know, we're in a sort of like a relatively good place. But I'll just go back to answering the question. There are so many costs that people don't see. You know, whether it's barriers, whether whether it's portable toilets, whether it's vehicles that you're hiring in, whether it's your medical staff, whether it's your website, whether it's your live engagement, whether it's your comms, whether it's your sports common, all that type of thing. There's just so many things there. And particularly, so you can go and get another event where you don't have those things, and the entry fees will be much lower. So, you know, it's the question isn't as asked of us quite as often as our
other events.
Fellow organisers at Ironman.
Thank you.
So I'd love to know, like, my story from the Outlaw. I've done the Outlaw Half twice and Outlaw Holcombe once. Both absolutely brilliant races. Looking forward to doing the Outlaw Half again at the weekend. The story that stands out for me of my experiences there was having interviewed Sam Perkins on the podcast, seeing him go through kind of while we were waiting to start our swim, seeing him come through the crowd to be a part of that last year was just, I mean, that completely got me going. Yeah. Is there a story that stands out to you as the one that kind of all the Outlaw events that you've done, that stands out to you as being your most memorable?
Ironically, the one at the moment is Sam, and I saw that throughout the years when Sam was first diagnosed with MND. Sort of like we spoke early on type thing. So obviously Sam is a previous Outlaw. Had part of he was actually he put some of the funding together to help Hoob start as well. So sort of like knew of him, but I've seen the video. I wasn't there when Sam came through, but at the start, but just seeing that actually teared me up as well. And I think seeing, obviously, I think he did Leeds yesterday, and also having a bit of time with Sam over the last couple of years. That's the one that comes sort of like back to me type thing. We've had some amazing athletes, you know, sort of. In the COVID year, we put Outlaw X on, and we had a PTO event. We had sort of like the likes of Cat Matthews, Tim Don, and various other people, lots and lots of names that came, and it was sort of like I never imagined. One of the things that we've always tried to do, or we've never. I'll try and get the terminology correct. We're very much an age group event. We don't have a Kona. We don't have a Nice, but realistically, if you're going to go into Ironman, you got to go to Kona. So we don't have that. We, you know, so it's very much sort of like age group based. But then to get the, you know, sort of like the start list, the male and female start list that we had for Outlaw X, because the PTO funding was absolutely amazing. But it's nice. We still get the likes of Ruth Astle, obviously, now comes along. You know, we've had Will Clark over this. Actually, you know, I've had so many athletes, and I'm not naming them all. I will get myself in trouble at some point, because I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of these people personally. So we've had some great performances from that point of view, and some really, really fast people. But it's the behind the scenes, it's the stories that people don't know about. I've only actually ever once been on the finish line when somebody's finished, because I sit in a control room, so I get the glory stuff. Like, I know if there's a Portaloo that needs a toilet roll, so I sit in with like whatever 10 different radios, listening to someone's got a puncture and they need a repair. We've got a medical, we need to sort that out. We've got this and the other. So the only person I ever went down to actually see finish was a friend of mine called Louis Dunn. His father was a close friend of mine who unfortunately passed away whilst he was cycling out of Mallorca with his son. Louis at the time was, I think, 11 or 12 years old, and really wasn't getting into triathlon. However, he basically followed his dad's footsteps, and sort of 8 years ago finished Outlaw Full. However, he finished Outlaw Full in around about 9 hours, and is actually turning out to be an amazing athlete. And he's probably the one that's probably teared me up a little bit, like Sam as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And it's those sorts of stories. The other story which you've just reminded me of, which also stands out in my mind, was me beating Will Clark when he took your record. The only problem was I was just starting my first lap as he was coming in for his third. But I did sprint down there just so that I had beaten Will.
Yeah. He what did he walk out? I think he went about 3:48 or 3:49 or something, which in the UK was probably 5 minutes quicker than anybody else had gone at the time.
Yeah. No, I was just. It was the time they won the relay that I picked.
They did a similar kind of time. That was Ross Davenport and Matt Botcher on the bike, and then
that's right.
Will had done the run. My brain sort of logs those and then remembers them randomly.
So, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back at the COVID times, obviously, you were one of the races that managed to kind of continue on more than others. Which was absolutely brilliant, which is why you had such a fantastic race with the likes of Tim Don and people like that turning up. What, with the benefit of hindsight now, what were the worst impacts of COVID to somebody like to as a race organizer? What benefits, what sort of advantages have come out? What improvements have come out as a result of what you learned in COVID?
It's weird. It was absolutely awful. We closed our office on like a Thursday, and then had to start to make some relatively tough decisions about what we were doing with our events. At the time, I was working. Obviously, we closed the office, so I came into this. So I came home, sat in the study here. There was myself and Ella, who just started working. Ella's my eldest daughter. She just started working for the business. And we'd always invested in decent technology, so literally we bought laptops home, we kept all of our phone numbers, and we continued to operate as an office type thing. But behind the scenes, I soon became an expert on reasons to cancel an event but not lose the business. And ultimately, that was it. One thing that we didn't choose to do, and everyone had their own sort of like individual reasons. We ultimately wanted to give the people an opportunity to race at some point. However, what we couldn't do was absorb all of the losses in one go, and then just say to people, just come and race for next year. So we had lots and lots of talk about with our insurers and all that type of thing, and the federation. And I'm not the greatest fan of the federation at all, but they were great during COVID. We ended up cancelling all of our events apart from Outlaw X, which was in September, and then we just rolled people on. We couldn't afford to give refunds because that literally would have just absolutely closed the business. We already had sort of hefty overheads, but we thought I've always had a simple theory, and it's still the same theory now. Treat others as you would want to be treated. So that's what we did. So we rolled everyone forward. We continued to work closely with the Federation, and we continued to work closely with Nottingham, predominantly Nottingham Highways Department and their events department. And and Boris had allowed us, rightly or wrongly, but Boris had allowed us to actually open up a little bit in September. Because we had a good relationship with Nottingham County Council and the venue and the Federation and the athletes, we then created Outlaw X, which became a PTO event, so one of the biggest triathlons in the world that year. And there was a lot of learning. We were trying to take, obviously, I don't know if anybody remembers, but at that point, one of the reasons what we had to do was we had to take people's temperature. So we went out with all these thermometers and was trying to take temperatures by, you had to sort of like, if you remember, you were sort of like...
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it was the end of September. It was about 3 degrees. Nobody had a temperature. Like, literally, not a single person. And we soon worked out after about 5 minutes, these are relatively pointless because no one has a temperature. But the other thing that sort of like that we've now stuck to, I'm not a fan of it, but some people are individual starts. Individual starts makes the sport easier for certain people. So you know, if you're not necessarily, if you're not a confident swimmer, but ultimately, if you're not confident getting in the water with everybody else, we're now doing starts of 3 people every 6 seconds. My point of view is I like to get everybody in. From an organising point of view, it's nice to get everyone in, start them at 6 o'clock, 6:30, whatever. It makes your cut-offs cleaner. It makes the whole event cleaner. You get a proper race and that type of thing. But ultimately, COVID stopped that. We then did a survey after the event. 80% of people individual starts came and have continued to play a part in the sport on a day-to-day basis. And interestingly, you know, everyone seems to like it. It makes the elite slightly harder because the elites don't go off together. And it's Outlaw X was an absolute classic exemplar. I can't remember who. I'm trying to think who came across the line. I think Tim might have come across the line third, ended up being fourth, because he was he started 7 seconds in front of somebody. So I think from an elite point of view, it's not so great. Things like we now do video race briefings rather than actual getting in a marquee together. I personally would rather stand up in front of people and have that interaction, because I think it's a better thing to do, but that's gone. Sport as a whole, I think a combination of cash crisis, COVID, people ultimately just doing other things. I think it's been pretty negative for triathlon itself. People didn't race in 2020, but then in 2021, we had this massive bumpy year, you know, and everyone sort of like took their entries, and we did our, you know, we went to wherever we had a deferred entry from, we did our event. 2022, I mean, me as an athlete and also from an event organizer point of view, everyone saw their entries just absolutely cascade, and we were sort of back to 2017 numbers, and so, you know, I think part of it's COVID. I think, you know, sort of like obviously everyone's in this sort of like financial crisis, whether you're in it or not. I think that's the thing. I don't think triathletes are actually hit by it quite as much as everybody. I think the demographics of triathletes is slightly different. However, I just think people are now racing less. You know, they're selecting their races. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're in the situation that we're in. Without COVID, I think people would continue to race 4 or 5 times a year. And we were seeing people doing sort of like 4 of our Outlaw events, as well as going to race an Ironman somewhere in Europe or something like that. So that's the sort of like a bit of negative and positive, really.
So you were planning Woburn and Bowood as well, weren't you? Is that what happened to them? And you also mentioned that you'll have 2 profitable events this year and 2 loss-making events. If you don't mind, if you're happy to share a bit more context around that, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, well, we'd always planned to get a 6-event series from an Outlaw point of view. And 2019, 2020 numbers, 21 numbers look like we'd justify that. We'd got an opening to go to Woburn and work at Woburn Abbey, which is absolutely stunning. The place was amazing. My most favourite site visits ever, to go to an event that we never actually launched. We must have had 20, over the years, we've probably looked at 20 plus places and not been able to launch an event. But we managed to get to Woburn. The people were great. The location was just, it's stunning. It's, good part of the country. Everything about it was good. The surrounding areas are good. It's going to be quite a tough bike ride. The run was really, really scenic. Was going to do a 2-leg swim. We have no idea why it didn't work. So, but it was very, very simple. It was expensive to put on, but we can handle that if we think we're going to get a return in 3 years. But ultimately, the numbers we never managed to get to anywhere near where we needed to get to. So that was the reason why we never managed to deliver Woburn, unfortunately.
Can you put your finger on why that was?
No, literally, I think we got to the point where we were starting to saturate ourselves. And I think we've got a rough idea of how many people we think might do an Outlaw half, a 7.3, etc., that sort of middle distance event. And we probably were at that point where we can handle, hopefully we can handle 4 with enough. And those people will still go and race Weymouth, or go and race Swansea or Cardiff, something like that. But I don't know whether we got to the point where we were actually at our own saturation point. There just weren't enough athletes, and also we then got to that dip in the sport where the sport was literally we were on this downward spiral of participation in triathlon. So I think there was that. We still delivered Woburn, we still delivered Bowood in 2021. One second, we delivered it in 2021, and the numbers were really good. We thought, right, we've got a great event here. Bowood House is fantastic. The lake was great. Tough bike ride, really tough run. However, the numbers were good, and I think we were close to about 1,800 in year 1. Fantastic. Year 2, we went, no idea. We had in the region of about 800 entries, which netted down to 500 finishers. That's just not what Outlaw's about. We need decent numbers, not only from a financial point of view, but to make it a good event. You need a lot, you need a decent amount of people. You get a decent amount of people. The whole atmosphere it's a carnival atmosphere. The commentators in the nicest possible way. They do a better job. You get more groups, you get more volunteers, and that type of thing. So we had to make a tough decision to actually not continue doing Bowood until we think we're at that point where we can bring it back and do it justice again. So hence, sorry, Claire.
Do you think people, you talked about sort of COVID and things, because a lot of athletes started to do different things, didn't they? So there was a big rise in trail running, for example, or ultra distance events. Do you think that's where athletes may have gone or gone to do slightly different events, like swim run, for example?
Yeah, no, completely. For dare say, in my training group, people are now they're doing long distance swims, they're doing sportives, they're doing gravel riding, they're doing ultras. Guy that I train with a lot, he's gone from doing Outlaw Ironman, and he's just doing 100k runs all the time. And I do think that's where the people have gone, and part of it is down to money. To go and do an ultra, it's much cheaper. You don't have to have a £1,000, a £10,000 bike. Your equipment's simple, the training's simple. And so, I think that's where we've sort of hemorrhaged our athletes type thing. And I don't really know how the age group scenes cope, and understand from a middle distance and long distance point of view where the athletes have disappeared to. And I think it started during COVID because it was easy to, we could go and do a run. We could go and, go on a bike final sportive. As I say, one of our guys is just doing long distance lake swimming now. And so I think, we're seeing a lot more of that, and they might come in, they might do 1, they might do 2 triathlons in the year, whereas historically they're doing 4 or they're doing 5. So I think it's that sort of like endurance, long distance, single sport stuff where we've lost people to.
And do you think you will kind of diversify the Outlaw proposition as a result? So whether it be aquathon, if that's how you call it, I'm never quite sure how you say that one, or any of the other types of formats, do you think that'll come into the Outlaw branding, or is that a plan or not?
If you'd asked me 2 or 3 years ago, completely not, no. However, I think we might have to, because we need to keep the brand going, and there's no issues with the brand at the moment. But if we want to continue keeping the brand going and pushing forward, then we've probably got to look at other opportunities. I think from our point of view, it's probably more enduro running, but maybe that's because I've got an interest in it. We did have a meeting. In fact, I had a meeting at 3 o'clock about looking at another venue with another type of offer. We can see the sort of like the off-road, the gravel, Alistair race Xterra at the weekend. Is that an area where there's going to be opportunities, whether they're, is it cheaper to put an event on? Will you have a 20-25 grand road closure bill? No, guaranteed you won't. So I think, realistically, we're going to have to look at it, and how successful we'll be or when we'll move into it, that's the bit I don't know. But we've started just to have a look and see where we think the opportunities are, or is that market mature enough for us yet to go into? And that's probably what I wouldn't be able to answer.
Yeah, funnily enough, only this morning one of the guys I swim with was, I mentioned I was racing at the weekend. He said, "Oh, he's injured and can't run at the moment." It's like, is there an aquathon there? I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure there isn't." So it seems to be, that's the one that, I don't know, maybe because I train with a lot of people that are older than me, but a lot of them can't, they want to run, but they just can't run. So it seems to be a good sort of default option for those people that aren't able.
Yeah, and I saw it on Ibiza. There was aquabike world champs, and there was all sorts of things. So we've been asked for it a couple of times, and it's always an entertaining sort of debate these days about when electric bikes are going to be allowed and all that type of thing. And I personally can see that we'll have to allow that at some point, because we need the sport to move forward. And I think you're aware, I partly live in the UK and I partly live in Lanzarote. And I would say, out of the bikes that we see out on the roads in Lanzarote now, there's probably maybe 10 or 15% of the road, 10 or 15% now electric. And if we need to continue to bring the numbers in, then there's at some point, and obviously I think there's a world championships for mountain biking that's electric. And so I do believe that we're going to have to, or hopefully the federation will make an early decision on what is fair about bringing electric road bikes in as well.
Yeah, that one to me is a really interesting one, isn't it? Because surely then it comes down to, well, how good's your bike? There's going to be one electric bike that's better than another electric bike, and then it becomes like Formula One. It all becomes nonsense if this guy can, and you can even chip the things, can't you? So
yeah, you can. Yeah, but it's the same as sort of like running shoes. Years ago, nobody would have ever thought that every man and his dog would be wearing carbon running shoes, because you run more efficiently, you run quicker, this, that, and the other. So sort of like 10 years ago, they didn't exist. 10 years later, not only do they exist, but they're now getting banned because for whatever reason they're banned. I don't fully understand them, but so I do think, given time, that I think we will get electric bikes within the sport.
Well, that will be an interesting race to see.
Yeah, an interesting debate.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think Claire spotted, that you use an AI camera as part of the a part of the setup at Outlaw. I think that's right. And there's a lot of talk in business at the moment about the impact that artificial intelligence will have on all businesses. Where do you think that, like we've talked to Mark Allen a bit about the artificial intelligence in the coaching side of things. Can you see artificial intelligence adding any value or any impact on your side of the sport?
I don't think we're affected by it positively or negatively at the moment. I think given time, it certainly will do. Whether it's going to add some, or whether we are, I think you're thinking the face recognition stuff that that our photographic partners will use. I think given time, it is going to affect things. How quickly, I don't know. Again, and I suppose in some ways we sort of like, Ironman will quite often follow, or maybe the PTO will follow. Ironman will go first, and then, or PTO will go first, and then we'll follow. I'm not against new things coming in at all. I think it'll add to the sport presentation, so that you know, not necessarily how the competitors are affected, but how the actual presentation of the sport. I loved sub-7, sub-8. Woke up on the Sunday morning. The weather wasn't great. I thought I'd stick it on. I thought I'd probably watch the swim, see how sort of like Joe's getting on or Kat's getting on, and you know, the commentary, the data, the stats was just absolutely amazing. And I ended up glued to the whole thing for all 7 hours or 8 hours. And I think that was just such a sport presentation, absolute perfection. And I don't know how we can roll that across to every athlete, but I think as time comes on, and then get that sort of like that interactive commentary, and I think as time goes on, that's going to be there. And so I think that I can see that affecting the sport in some ways, and that's for the good. One thing that we can possibly do, and hopefully AOL won't take this wrong, we could publish live photographs instantly, and we can push it through people's WhatsApps, and we could send one photograph or 50 photographs to somebody live, which can then push it out. So, you know, that type of thing, the technology's there. You know, the likes of London Marathon and that type of thing, they're already doing it. We use it for Cambridge Half Marathon. And I think we got 7 million views for a Cambridge Half Marathon. So that's sort of like 12,000 runners, and we get 7 million views because the amount of imagery and the shareability and that type of thing. Wow. So all of that's really, really positive. We could have a bot that sits in the office and that responds to everyone's questions on Messenger and that type of thing. That exists already. Not necessarily for us. I think we're slightly different to that. But saying that, you know, I don't want to ever really say it's not something we'll do. It's just not something that we're certainly planning currently. But a lot of that, certainly some of our suppliers do.
Yeah, brilliant. It's really interesting. It's just clearly it's a hot topic at this moment in time in business, but it's interesting to think about how it would impact different sports and different sides of the sport. So one of the things that we do on this podcast is we ask the previous guest to ask the next guest a question without knowing who that is. So our previous guest was Karen Smyers.
Yeah.
Claire's got Karen's question for you.
So Karen's question is, growing up, what coach, parent, or other adult influence in your life had the biggest impact on your athletic career, and why?
I did see I did know the question, and I probably don't remember who this was, but I've been given 2 bits of advice. One when I was really, really younger, when I was much younger, but not from an athlete point of view. But it was really, really simple. But I can't remember who the person was. But they basically said to me surround yourself with people that are better than you but not like you. And if anybody knows our team, they're all absolutely amazing, and they are very, very different to me. I drive them completely nuts, and they're all better than me. They're great at each job they do, and I frustrate the hell out of them in the nicest possible way. And so that's probably the one piece of advice that, the one piece of advice I would say is probably affecting me most. And that's just generally sort of like in life type thing. I haven't got a question yet for the next person though, so if I can think about that one for a few minutes.
We'll give you time to think about that, don't worry. Yep. But I actually think that's great advice, and that tunes quite in with Henry Ford's advice. He was actually, I don't know if you know the story, but at one point Henry Ford was brought into the courtroom for something that I can't exactly remember. And the challenging lawyer said, give me the answer to this question. And he was like, why would I want to fill my brain with that sort of stuff when I have a team of people that would know, that far better than I do. Yeah. So I think it's really powerful to, surround yourself with excellent people that aren't like you. So and I think that's really, really good advice. What's in the, what other things are in the pipeline for Outlaw? We talked about maybe variations, maybe other events. Is there anything else that you're excited about and planning in the future?
No, it's quite strange actually. Everyone's positive that works in the business. We all want to put good events on, but because of the state of the sport, because of the state of the economy, a lot of our time now is spent doing the crap stuff. We're revisiting budgets all the time. We're looking at forecasts and all that type of thing. So that's where we sit. It's not a great place. And I think I said it before. I've been in the game for 30 years. We've had Outlaw since 2010, and it's only been the last couple of years, and we've sort of, we've had to juggle quite a bit. So our sort of short-term aim is to get back to ideally 4 and then 5 and then 6 events that are all doing well. And then definitely we want to go abroad. Where we go, which part of the world, I don't know. We have opportunities to go somewhere, but I don't know whether it's right for the brand. It would be something completely unique that Outlaw's never done. It's a little more PTO than Outlaw type thing, but because we're now part of the CSM group, we have opportunities to go within reason anywhere in the world. But I don't know whether it's right for our brand and the future of the brand. And it's probably the only time I'm going to be a little bit cagey about what we're doing.
I'm assuming Lanzarote might be one of the countries that's fairly high up the list, though.
No. Lanzarote is without doubt my sort of like I won't say holiday because it's not a holiday from my point of view, but no, I love the Ironman. I love the 70.3 event. I love the island. It doesn't have the economy to cope with Outlaw, and that Outlaw probably wouldn't be successful. They've got ocean lava across there. So I'll stick to training in Lanzarote, and but probably not any races. But yeah, the ultimate aim after the next couple of years, grow the brand back in the UK to where it was, and then hopefully successfully and appropriately launch something offshore, let's say.
Brilliant. Well, that sounds exciting. I look forward to hearing about that. Now, we ask everyone that comes onto the podcast for book recommendations. So that's books that you've read that you found yourself kind of finding value in or recommending to others. So are there any particularly good books that you've recommended or found over the years?
Do you know the cheese book? And I'm trying to think what it's called.
Oh, Who Moved the Cheese?
Is it Who Moved the Cheese?
Who Moved My Cheese? Something along those lines.
Yeah. Definitely that one. And at the moment, I haven't got it with me actually. I like Andy McNabb stuff. So that's one. But I'm a big sort of podcast listener. So of anything, actually. The last few weeks, because of what's happened with drugs and testing and all that sort of thing, I've been on a lot of the triathlon ones, which have been quite entertaining.
Is there a particular podcast that you find delivers the most value, other than the TRIBEathlon one, obviously? But
of course, yeah,
that's a given.
I don't know, actually, in reality, and predominantly because I flick from one to another at the moment. I don't want to say one because I'm potentially going to go on to another, and then somebody will turn around and say, "But you said this was the best." So I'm going to possibly sit on a fence as far as
okay. But you mentioned drug testing there, so that's an interesting topic at the moment. Yeah. Is there any? Are you guys? What are you guys doing in this space as an event organizer?
That's the thing. We once ticked off about 5 or 6 years ago about somebody taking EPO. We spoke to the federation and asked what procedures we should have and that type of thing. And ultimately, at that time, there was nothing in place. I guess it's slightly different from our point of view because we don't attract many pro athletes, and our prize money is really not the greatest. But we sort of like more of a conversation that I've been having around the dinner table, so to speak. Unless you're, sort of like that real, probably top 20 in the world, and you're ranked PTO and that type of. I don't really know how much testing there is that's going on. Interesting, obviously, there was one that in February and someone's now got caught. It'll be interesting to see if that is the end of it, whether there's any repercussions for more athletes or coaches from that. But from our point of view, we've never had anybody turn up to one of our events, and as high profile as they are, we've literally had no drug testing ever. But it will be a conversation that I think we'll be having with the federation, because we've got the British Middle Distance Champs at Holcombe in start of July, and and this weekend it's one of the gateway events to getting a pro license, and so we don't know, we have no idea. I'm relatively confident that everyone's clean, but now people know that you can go onto Amazon or whoever it is and buy your EPO and administer it yourself, and nobody ever knows, because you don't need to tell your doctor. Does that mean other people are going to now try it and now do it?
Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because you want to trust the whole sport, but clearly the whole sport isn't clean, and yet, I mean, you're right. Unless the top pros are racing, how much does it really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, it's nice that, I don't know, I think maybe naively, I thought our sport was clean. And you hear rumours every now and again, but on the whole, you actually just think, well, it's not true, is it? Sort of like these people are tested, they end up with their black blood passports, and I'm sure everyone's absolutely perfect. But I guess the reality is they're not, and there is a lot of money to be made, and winning a PTA event is worth, I think, 100,000 or so nowadays. And so you can see why people potentially are looking at enhancing their natural abilities, so to speak. Yeah,
unfortunately that's always going to be the case, isn't it, as the sport becomes more popular. Iain, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. I'm really looking forward to racing the Outlaw at the weekend. First race of the year for me. And the weather is looking good. By the time this goes out, this race will have long finished, and hopefully I'll have got my PB at the Outlaw half. But I think one thing that I have spotted, which I think is amazing, I've said for a while that in business, when you're successful when people are tattooing your logo onto their skin. And I've seen Outlaw tattoos in the same way that people have Ironman tattoos. So that is a massive endorsement for what people think of the brand and what you're doing. So yeah, huge congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. Completely randomly, as I say, it was one of the things. But I've had a list of 5, and I can't remember the 5 at the moment. But sort of like we crazily put, we want people to get a tattoo. And I remember quite quickly was in a start. There we go. The kids at the time were swimmers. They were swimming at Pondsport in Sheffield. Was in a Starbucks next to Pondsport in Sheffield, and there was somebody with an Outlaw tattoo. And it's the first one I'd seen, and I was like that. I was like, well, you know, what you can imagine what I would be like. And I didn't know what to do. So I just stood behind them for ages. And then sort of like when they got to the front of the queue, I just said, look, can I buy you coffee? They didn't have a clue I was. Completely crazy man. And I just said, you're the first Outlaw tattoo I'd ever seen. And he'd done the first one, wanted to do Ironman, hadn't done Ironman, came and did Outlaw, and just wanted to show that what he'd done type thing. So yeah, so that would have been in 2011, I think it was. So within sort of like a year or so after the first event started.
Brilliant. Well, I none of my businesses have ever led to anybody having a tattoo done of the logo. So that is an awesome achievement. I think that's there's not many companies that can say that they've achieved that. No. Yeah, but brilliant. Good luck with the races for the coming year, and yeah, really looking forward to seeing you in Nottingham.
Yeah, well,
I may be at the relays because that's always fun, to say the least.
Yeah, look, absolutely love the relays. It's nuts as it gets, but yeah, I love it. So Charlie, good luck this weekend. Hopefully, I'll see you. And thank you very much for having me on. I've absolutely loved it.
That's been great. Thanks, Iain.
Cheers.
If you want to find out more about the Outlaw Triathlon series or the Cambridge Half Marathon, the best place to go to is www.osbevents.com. If you like what we do at the TRIBEathlon podcast, you've got to register for Tribe Talk. It's an email that comes out every 2 weeks, packed full of everything to do with swim, bike and run, but also nutritional help, business coaching and a whole lot more. Whether that's books, videos, TED Talks, apps or technologies, it's packed full of ideas that can help improve your sport, your life and your business. So register for it at tribeathlon.com and you'll be sure that every 2 weeks your inbox is full of some amazing ideas and resources to improve your life.
So what did you make of the interview with Iain?
It was great. You know, it's really good, isn't it? Like, we're lucky that we have so many different types of people in terms of athletes and in terms of business owners. And I thought it was really interesting to kind of hear where their brand started. And we all know the brand of Outlaw. And I thought it was really interesting as well, him describing about COVID and the impact, and I think we all saw that explosion, didn't we, of everyone like chomping at the bit to get back into racing. But it's really interesting what he said now in terms of where the current climate is with racing. Have you seen that in any of the I can't remember if you've done any races yet this year.
Well, no, I haven't done any races yet this year. My first I was supposed to have done South Africa, but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But I think I can see it, and I actually see it in the guys that I'm training with as well. You know, of the guys that I train with that historically were going off to do Kona and Ironmans all over the place, they all seem to have lost their mojo for a bit for it. You know, like 2 of them were doing a 400k ride Saturday and Sunday, and then well, mostly Saturday, but it rolled into Sunday, and then they're doing another like 600k ride this coming weekend, and others are doing different things. And yeah, I feel like I've come to the party really late, because just as I'm kind of doing more and more triathlons, they're all giving up triathlons, and either because of injury or because of just kind of losing their mojo a little bit for it. So I do wonder whether he's right in that it was this kind of massive pent-up demand post-COVID, and then suddenly that's now kind of fizzled out and people have gone off and done other things. But I mean, I think I think it's incredible what he's done in this space in terms of, you know, these are really good races.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think that anybody who's getting running a business where people are tattooing your logo onto their skin, doing something right.
You know, and people, you know, based in the UK, for any listeners kind of outside, but based in the UK, you know, you see people now walking around with Outlaw t-shirts, Outlaw bottles, Outlaw bags, you know, and actually if you think about that against the big brands, you know, that's amazing, isn't it, for a brand based in the UK to be able to do that. And I think it'll be really exciting to see what he was talking about in terms of where they may go next, in terms of something new or maybe in a different location as well. And yeah, and I imagine, you know, quite a few companies are probably thinking in a similar vein in terms of other races that they can do if there is this kind of void in people.
Well, it reminded me a bit of a conversation we had with Bob Babbitt in terms of blue oceans of kind of, right, how can we, like speed golf, people like golf, people like running, right, we'll bring those together, and all of the other things. And you've raced the Outlaws in the past, so what's what have been your experiences?
Actually, I've raced, well, Iain was talking about the relays. They are amazing for anyone that hasn't done them. It is pandemonium, absolute. But they design it like that. I'm pretty convinced they design it like that. Nobody ever really knows what they're doing, but it is such good fun. So that has been amazing. And I think, to me, their events are, and then I was part of a relay before, and then after COVID, I was one of the people that went in the explosion of the COVID event. It was huge. The transition was massive. I didn't make it past the swim because I couldn't run out the swim. I mean, I couldn't get out the lake. So yeah, that was my experience. But really friendly, amazing commentary. I was saying just before our call today, you know, the commentary was hilarious and it was really good. And I just think it's to me, it was a very fun and inclusive event. And I think with a little less stress in terms of, it didn't feel overwhelming or stressful to go and rack up, or it's a bit more friendly, I guess, than some of the other big events.
It is a bit more laid back, isn't it? And I think you commented when we were having that conversation, you commented on the things that people had stuck to their bike.
Charlie,
tell me about that.
Honestly, I actually do have some images of it, but I had to think twice about whether I could post it or not. It was amazing. I mean, with my background in sports nutrition, I mean, essentially it wasn't wrong. There was definitely carbohydrates attached to some of these bikes, but you know, people may and many years ago there was a way that you could kind of tape. People used to tape things like gels to their bike and things. That's kind of disappeared a bit with these kind of bags and things. But pizza. But the funny thing was,
they were taping pizza to the bike.
Pieces of pizza taped so that you could peel them back and take a bit. So they were in triangles even. I mean, it was amazing. Triangles of pizza. But not only that, and the thing that I guess really upset me about it, slightly burnt. So, you know, not only was there pizza snapshot, but slightly burnt. But I mean, hey, you've got carbohydrates, you've got a bit of sodium from the cheese. I mean, what's not to love? And I'm sure that person, that was going to be their highlight on their bike. Baguette. I saw some white ham and cheese baguettes also taped to bikes. I mean, amazing. I'm not quite sure how you get all that out with things falling out, but yeah, and that made my day. I mean, the fact that this was at the race that I couldn't finish, and well, I couldn't really start, but having limped out the swim and back to my bike, it made my day. It was amazing. It really was. So yeah, I should have asked him, because I'm sure there's many stories like that.
Yes, I would imagine there are some amusing stories amongst it as well. But I think that, you know, so I've had some good moments at the Outlaw. I didn't talk about the Holcombe race. I had a nightmare when I did Outlaw Holcombe. It's a beautiful place to race. It's really lovely. The swim was the water wasn't the best. It's in a lake that's so the swim I was kind of, I'm not sure that was one of my favorites, but the bike was beautiful, really lovely bike. Run is beautiful but hilly and tough. But I just I remember talking to you about this at the time. It was a few days after I had my COVID jab, And with the benefit of hindsight, the COVID jab had clearly had an impact, because I just had nothing in the tank when it came to the run. And all I can remember was there was this lady in a pink tutu that had got aboard, and she was kind of cheering me on. And after the finish, she was walking past me. I said, "Thank you for the encouragement. I needed it." And she said, "Yeah, I'm not going to lie, you look like you were on death's door." I was like, "Oh, thank you." I thought it was purely internal, but no, apparently I looked as bad as I felt.
At least you looked unwell.
Yeah, it was dreadful.
There was validation for how you were feeling, at least.
Yeah, exactly. So I blame the COVID jab, but no, I think there was loads of really good stuff there from Iain, and I think it's interesting how, yes, there were some positives that came out. I mean, clearly, if you're an event organizer, COVID was a massive traumatic experience for your business, and one that they're still not getting over now. But also that there was some positives to take away from that. You know, and whether the mass start is a good thing for the kind of uber keen triathletes that like you know, having an elbow to the face is another question. But clearly the majority of people, from what Iain has said, don't like, you know, they prefer the kind of gradual start, which I can see the logic in.
I think from a safety perspective, you know, that also comes from a good place, doesn't it, as well? I think I also think it was interesting, and just kind of want to loop in about the testing side of things, because you know, interestingly, obviously we've seen some high profile cases in terms of people being caught from an anti-doping perspective. And, you know, what does that look like in the UK in terms of testing? And actually, for anyone that does want any more information, if you go to the UKAD website, you can, so this is our UK anti-doping website, you can find everything you need to know about testing. And maybe that's something we can drop into another podcast, because actually any of our national governing bodies can request that we have testing at any of these races. So unlike professional athletes, we don't have our passports, and we don't get randomly tested at any point, or be notified and then you have to be at home to be tested. But as age group athletes, we can be tested at any event. So there is no reason why anyone thinks that they could get away with using any sort of banned substances in terms of testing.
Which is actually reassuring, because, you know, people spend a lot of time and money and effort to do things like qualify for Kona. And so to think that you would be robbed by that, okay, it's slightly different when it's your career, but still it's really important to people. And to feel like that somebody's cheating their way through would be awful. So I mean, I think there probably needs to be more of it, but some random testing in there.
And there are so any sort of the big like international federations and big event organizers will be able to conduct that kind of testing, or have the people on site to do the testing. And one of the things from experience, but also working with different athletes, so non-professional and professional athletes, but from an age group perspective, you could come in first place and be on the podium and get tested, or you could actually be in 17th place and be randomly tested. So we should expect as athletes to know what nutritional products we're taking on board and have they been batch tested, so to avoid any substances that might be in them, but also any medications that you might be taking and things you might have not taken and taken just before by accident even. So you can check things like Global Dro, which is on an app. Global Dro would tell you all about your medications. So as an athlete, that's your responsibility to check those. And then you can also look for batch testing. So some of the companies like Inform Sport in the UK and NSF Sport in the US and also in the UK, and every country has their own sort of some of their testing bodies as well, and different testing companies. And there's also private testing companies that will test products as well. So there's no reason for us to randomly think, well, not randomly, but accidentally dope in any way, because the information is there.
And it's our responsibility to make sure that we
absolutely don't and even if you work with a coach, a nutritionist, a dietitian, a medical doctor in sport, we can all give you that advice, and we can tell you where to look, and we can help check that with you. But ultimately it sits with you as the athlete to make that informed decision as well.
So the decision to resist stealing some of my wife's testosterone is the right one.
Correct. Correct. And if you go onto not UK, if you go onto Global Dro, and it is Global Dro, there's an app you can download, and you can go in as you can select whether you're a pharmacist, a medical doctor, a dietitian or nutritionist, an athlete. You select your country, and then you can put in even generic names. So you don't necessarily have to put the actual name of the drug. So you could put in something like iron, for example, without putting in ferrous sulfate or ferrous fumarate, and it would come up with whether you can take inside of competition and outside of competition. Really simple to understand. And if you don't understand it, if you go to your pharmacist with that information, they can go in as a pharmacist and check that for you as well. So it is worth just knowing that these sites exist for us to be able to check, and also checking batch testing of your nutritional products, and that includes the gels that you take and the drinks that you have and the collagen or any other supplements you take, multivitamin and minerals, vitamin D. They should all be batch tested.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good advice. Right, let's wind this episode up. But another good episode of the TRIBEathlon podcast. Good luck with your race this weekend. Of course, by the time this goes out, it'll have long since finished.
And good luck with yours as well. First race.
Thank you very much. I'm just hoping my ankle holds out for it. And then, for everybody else, keep on training.
And remember, this episode was brought to you by the Trusted Team and by Fourth Discipline. So if you want to find out more about how the Trusted Team can help you grow your business and improve your work-life balance, go to thetrusted.team. And if you want to find out more about how Fourth Discipline can help take your performance in sport and life to the next level, go to fourthdiscipline.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please do review it and share it, because it helps other people find what we think is really valuable learning lessons from amazing athletes. So please do that. You can also find the whole back catalogue at tribeathlon.com, and you can also find out about the TRIBEathlon app, which helps people find events, find people to train with, and enjoy their events through their tribe. So check out tribeathlon.com.